as we begin, it is Memorial Day weekend. And Memorial Day is a day that we have set aside in our calendar where we honor those soldiers, those men and women who have served this country, who have paid that ultimate sacrifice, who paid that ultimate price for the freedoms that we enjoy here. And so oftentimes we are so far removed from from any act of war and those kind of things, and we're so very grateful, but we get lulled into a sense of security, and we forget. But on Memorial Day we do remember, and so we do honor those. It's also, Memorial Day is what we call the official start of summer. And it's a time that we gather together, and when we have our picnics, and we gather together with our friends and our families, and for these big gatherings. But not this year. This year we don't feel comfortable being out in the open. I look at this picture and I'm thinking, that would be so nice if only things were a little different than they are right now. And next year, likely we will be in some new semblance of normal, where we are not so concerned about getting out and getting these things. Instead of getting out, we have been in self-isolation now for about 10 weeks. March 13th, we got the word that the schools were going to be shut down. We were going to be gone for a couple weeks while we're waiting for this virus to die down and whatnot. And so we're looking forward to having, a couple weeks off would be very nice. I mean, we can do this. Let the viruses die down, let it run its course and whatnot. And so here we are, 10 weeks later, and while it seemed positive, now we're suffering from something that we call quarantine fatigue. It's amazing how many new words get added into our lexicon over the course of time, just based upon our current circumstances that we have. And so we have been caught inside now for such a long time. And now there's actually protests going on across the country, around the world. We're tired of being stuck inside. But I, for one, have not been stuck inside. And so I find myself so very delighted that I have an opportunity, that I have some property there, that I can get out and I can work in my garden. And this is my big garden down over the hill. And as you can see, I've got my new compost in there, and I just need to get the new mulch put in between the rows. But I fortunately have time to work on it. So I don't feel as cooped up as others might feel along the way. There is an old saying, though, concerning things that are absolutely certain in our lives. And that is, in this world, nothing is certain but death and taxes. But I want you to know that there is one other thing that's probably just as certain. As long as Mike Williams is sharing a message in the springtime, we're likely going to have a garden message. and so with our current circumstances being what they are, here in this nation and around the world with COVID-19, Father has given us a message as we are coping and struggling with these kind of things. I was talking to Marcy about this yesterday or so, and she said, Mike, don't go into all the minutia of all the gardening stuff. Stick to the topic. And so I will do my best to stick to the topic. It's just that I happened to be kneeling beside the flower bed when Father and I were having this conversation. So we just happened to have another gardening message, and this is what he says. We're on the grow again. And it's kind of like a tie back to that old song, On the Road Again. And it just looks like we're on the grow again. And so it's just a kind of play on words. But I'm wanting you to know there's very little in life that makes me happier or more content than to get my fingers down in the dirt and actually be putting in this year's plants. Because the plant itself, there's not that much special to it, but there's so much potential that is inside of that. And as I'm playing there in my dirt, as I'm digging down and I'm finding a way to make certain that the roots are down deep, it is just a very contented time for me. So as I was kneeling there next to the flower bed, I was putting in zinnias at that point in time, but I won't go into it. But as I was kneeling there, Father was just reminding me of all just the natural cycles that take place in our lives and in the world. The things those cycles that He's put in place since creation. A cycle is one of those things that is just a series of events or occurrences that happen again and again. It's a repeating pattern. And so as we are going through this, and that's what this whole virus thing is all about too. It's one of those natural cycles that come along. In nature and our daily routine, we see natural cycles. And he simply said this to me: as surely as night follows day, spring follows winter. And winter is my least favorite season, followed very closely by fall. But winter, it seems like it lasts forever. But just as day follows night and spring follows winter, a new growing season begins. And so that's where we are at this point in time. And we need to be able to view this as a new season. These seasons of difficulty, they don't last forever. It only seems like they do. A season is about 3 months. Our calendar has 4 seasons, and each season is about 3 months long. And so this season that we're in appears to be coming to, well, I don't know if it's an end, but it's a change at this moment. So with this new season, though, comes new challenges and new adventures for us to enjoy. 10 weeks. It has been 10 weeks since this period of isolation began, and it just feels like it's been forever. Like I said, when it first started, I thought, it might be a couple weeks. They said that we'd be out of school until the end of the month, and so it's just a couple weeks, just a few weeks. And then it got extended, and then it's been extended, and so here we are, and now they're starting to talk about what are we going to do at when we come back in the fall. But as of this week, the restaurants are starting to open up. There's different things that are starting to open up. I noticed that Dairy Cream Corner is now having walk up to the window rather than having a phone call, which means there's going to be a very long line. And so it's just a matter of time. And now it appears that it just appears and just feels like in ourselves that nothing is going to be the same as it used to be. That our past, our future here is just not going to be the same as our past. But I want you to understand something. It never is. It never is. So rather than us fretting about, we're never going to be the same as what we were, we never are. That's the thing we tend to forget. We forget this whenever we're in the middle of a crisis. We think things are so different, things are not the same. But things are always changing. And that's what we need to remember. The children today, this generation, all of us are going to remember this year. We're going to remember the disruptions. The kids from school are going to remember the year that they had an extended summer vacation. The seniors graduating from high school are going to remember they didn't get to finish their senior year. The kids at my school in the 4th grade didn't get to finish their last year there. They're going to remember this. But this is one of those cycles. When did this happen the last time? The last time this happened was around 1918 to 1922, right there in that generalized area. And there are people who survived. There's people who are still alive today. My friend Polly, is 101 and a half. And she was born in 1918, but she was too young to remember any of this. The people who are alive today can't remember the hardships of the Spanish flu. We can go back and look at the newsreels, we can go back and look at the headlines, look at the newspapers and whatnot, but the people who are actually alive today don't remember. This is new. When they call it a novel virus, it is because none of us have any kind of experience with this. And so as we move along, and this is, I feel like I'm stepping on eggshells or something, or thin ice, but have there been missteps along the way as those people who are in charge have been trying to manage it? Have there been missteps? Of course there have been missteps. They've never done this before. Have there been miscues in terms of communication and making certain that people understand everything? Yes, there have been miscues. Of course there have. But you see, we've not dealt with this. This is new. There are always going to be missteps and miscues. Every single one of us have that potential and that ability to make mistakes. And I, for one, wouldn't want to be ones making these decisions. There's been a lot of controversy, been a lot of talk of conspiracies and hidden agendas concerning what's going on right now. But it could just simply be that this is new for everyone involved. Yes, we can go back and look at history, but we're in a different situation now. And are there people making decisions that are selfish? I'm certain that there probably are. But I'm certain also that these are men and women who want this crisis to end. None of us have experienced this kind of thing before. And so I'm thinking, we ought to be able to extend grace, because it is said to err is human, to forgive divine. In other words, we need to rise above our natural proclivities and inclinations to judge and to be critical. We need to forgive and to offer our support rather than our criticism. It's also been said to err is human, but to admit it, superhuman. Well, I doubt seriously we're going to see that happen. But that's okay, because all of us have been there as well. But I digress. Back to the garden. Okay, back to that conversation that Bob and I were having there next to the flower bed. When I was kneeling there, this is what I saw. What are these? They are weeds. I had just cleaned that flower bed out. I had just gone through it and taken the big stuff out, but now here it is, just a week or two later, and I have all these little things coming up. I realize I have extra time right now, but I had just done it. These weeds just seemed like they came up out of nowhere. And so Father and I, while we were sitting there, while I was kneeling there, just having this conversation about weeding and planting. And I will tell you this, planting is a lot more enjoyable. I was putting in the zinnias, as I said, but as I was putting in the zinnias, I was having to remove all of the weeds along the way. And this is what I know. Weeding is annoying, but it is necessary. It's kind of like housework. All right, you can clean your house, you can do the laundry, but it seems like it just needs done again and again. Well, I guess it's one of those natural cycles, perhaps. But it's one of those situations that it just has to be done over and over and over. I personally like to cheat. I like to put my grass clippings and the mulching down. I like to cover it up and just prevent them from growing in the first place. But that doesn't always work. But you know what? You want to know what the key to successful gardening is? I'm certain that you do. The key is that in order to have a successful garden, you have to spend time there. If you simply put it in and leave, it's going to get away from you. I want to connect this back to the message that we had a few weeks ago, the business of getting away. It's like being in a relationship. If we don't spend time in it, the relationship isn't going to be successful. Just like we talked about in the getting away message. Jesus took time to get away, spend time alone with Father, so he could have an idea, have a certainty as to what he was supposed to be doing. He said he only did the things he saw his Father doing, and so he took time. In our lives, and in these flower beds, particularly in my flower bed, weeds creep in. There's this thing called creeping Charlie that comes in. There's this clover that comes in. There's these wild strawberries that creep in. It's as if they, when I was living in Florida, I had a very difficult time growing grass in the yard. But I'm telling you, once it found the flower beds, it took over. So I oftentimes said, I'm just going to make my entire yard a flower bed. And then I'll have a perfect yard at that point. I don't know whether it's because that the soil has been turned over and it's softer and it's been enriched over the course of time, but the weeds find it and flourish very, very well. But they just creep in. None of us plant it. And when they do creep in, we are tempted. Oh, aren't we tempted, though, over the course of time? But when we look out there and we see those weeds, we're tempted to ignore them. I'm going to have to get to that one of these times. And we just kind of look over them. Or we decide, well, we don't really have enough time right now to deal with it, so we would just simply wait. Before we get into it, we just wait. I've got something else I'd rather be doing. Well, I would rather be doing a lot of things rather than weeding my flower beds or weeding my garden. But the point is that whether we have interest, and we don't, or whether we have time, or whether we think that they're not hurting anything right now, we'll just leave them be there a little while. I want to give you an example. This is my backyard. I took this picture yesterday. Can you spot the weed in my backyard? Let me show you. That weed is now a gigantic maple tree. The fact of the matter is this: that whole back section of my yard was once a garden, clear across that back section, and it was a very good garden from what I was told. But you see, a whirligig from the neighbor's tree found its way into the garden, and it started to grow. It was not meant to be there. It should not have been there, but it was let go. And now, what should have been a very easy thing to pick out and remove, the amount of time, effort, and money it would take to remove that tree now is much, much greater than it could have been. You see, weeds are one of those things that they creep in, and if you don't take care of them, they become a permanent fixture. Yesterday, I was mowing, and that tree threw off thousands and thousands of whirligigs, and I mowed off several new little maple trees coming up. and I will remove hundreds more before this growing season is over. But you have to be vigilant. You have to keep track of it. Weeds, what we call weeds, these are those things that, they arrive in our lives and we don't like them, we don't want them, they're not fruitful, they don't produce anything except more weeds. But they creep into our lives. And if they're left unattended, they gain a foothold. They just show up. Whether it's after a storm, where the wind blows it in, and there are those hard times that come in our lives, those difficult moments, and there are things that just kind of get stuck in our hearts, like bitterness and anger and things like that. And if we don't deal with them at that point in time, they become big problems that we have to deal with in the future. They're just simply things that come in and gain a foothold. And once they gain a foothold, like this poor flower bed, it takes a lot of effort then to clean it out. It's hard to find what you actually planted because it's overrun. It doesn't take long. Well, I can plant my garden and I can walk away from it. And in 3 weeks, 6 weeks' time, there will be no garden left. It'll be a thicket of weeds. So there is an ongoing effort that has to be taking place. It's far easier to deal with them when they're still this size. And I'm telling you, I walked by that flower bed because they're still there. I walked by that flower bed thinking, I really need to take the time and I need to get in there and clean it out. But I'm waiting. After all, there might be something good in there that I'm unaware of. The point is that these little guys, the roots are still they're still shallow. They haven't been established yet. They haven't gone down deep, and so they're easy to remove. It's just time consuming. They may be small now, but they won't be for very long. Now typically, I'm able to recognize the weeds, but there are sometimes that there's something new that comes up. These little guys here, I've never seen them before. I mean, this is creepy Charlie. But this kind of stuff here, I don't know exactly what it is. And so I left it there, thinking that, it might be something good. I don't recognize it for what it is, but now that it's getting more leaves, I'm thinking, it is weeds. I was hoping it might be something. I was hoping they might be Shasta daisies. Because after all, my Shasta daisies were there and they'd fallen down. The seeds had fallen out. I'm thinking, that's where those things were. I think it's happened before. In the past, it's happened before. I've had those kind of things take place. There are things that I planted last year and they reseed themselves, but I wasn't familiar with what they look like until they get up a little size. Well, now I see that they aren't Shasta daisies, so I'm going to have to get in there and deal with them. I'm going to clean them out. But there are seeds from the past in our lives that just kind of pop up. And so those things in our past that we thought were dealt with somehow find their way into our present again. And that impacts our future as well. It is one of those natural cycles. These things creep in and they begin to take root. It's important that we take time and we deal with them, remaining vigilant. And so, this business of removing weeds, that, by the way, is a dandelion. I can tell by the leaves and by the root structure there. But what we're dealing with here is whenever we are in the process of weeding, when we are weeding, we feel like we have a sense of control. There's no one standing over your shoulder saying, well, you need to remove this, this, and this, and this. I get to pick and choose what I keep and what I get rid of. And so, as I'm going through that weeding process, I'm thinking, I'm doing a really good job with this. But when Father starts weeding, we get a little nervous because we don't know exactly what is he going to remove. Because we have our favorite weeds, those things that we put a value on, that he doesn't. And so whenever he starts going through and weeding our lives, we get a little nervous about it. But the Word says we need to get rid of those things. Get rid of everything that slows us down, especially sin that just won't let go. You see, we become very comfortable, but once those roots start taking hold, it becomes like that tree in my backyard. Extremely difficult to remove. And the roots will be there for longer than I will be. The Word says, get rid of those things that slow us down. The Word also says that God is the one who began this work in you. And so this garden of your life is what God is doing. And so it is His garden, so we allow Him to take care of the weeds and to rely and to help us to realize what He has made our lives for. God is the one who began this work in you, and I'm certain that He won't stop until it is complete. But it's just a matter of trust. And where does this trust come from? Trust is built upon relationship, and relationship demands an investment of time and attention, kind of like tending your garden. If I'm going to allow God to go ahead and tend this garden, I have to have a level of trust, and knowing that He will do what is right. He will do what is best. The Word says to trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not into your own understanding. And this is where we get ourselves in trouble. You see, we are very, very independently minded. After all, we do have some idea as to what is best for our lives, We have been making our own decisions for a long time, but our own understanding can lead us into very dangerous, desperate places over the course of time. And then it goes on, in all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your path straight. That word submit, we are very independent. Submit? Acquiesce? I don't think so. But in all your ways, submit to Him. But you see, the word there, submit, that has nothing to do with acquiescence. The word there is the Hebrew word yada, which is, in other places, is called acknowledge. It has to do with that level of devotion. It has to do with an experiential knowledge based upon love, based upon relationship. As married people, we submit one to another. As believers, we submit one to another out of relationship. It's not a matter of giving up my own way. It's a matter of being in agreement. Submit to Him in all your ways. Having that experiential knowledge that, I trust Him, so I will submit to Him. And He will make my path straight. He will level out those rough places. Does that mean we're never going to have trouble again? No. It just means that He's going to help us deal with it as we submit to Him, allowing Him to pull out the weeds that He deems necessary to remove. And once the weeding process is finished, this time, there will be another time that there will be more weeds that have to be dealt with. But even during that process, Father reminded me that there are surprises along the way. And as I was kneeling there in front of that flower bed, because as I'm looking here, I'm thinking, those are just weeds. But as I looked a little closer, as I told you, I tend to be able to recognize things. There are things in here that are good. I've got sunflowers. I've got purple poppies. I've got a larkspur over there. These are things that the birds have planted, that the wind has blown. These are things that have just come into the garden. I didn't plant them, but you know, they are beneficial things. They are things that just have happened into my life. And those are those unexpected blessings that Father dumps into our lives from time to time. Yes, there's going to be weeds and things that we have to deal with and things that are not productive and they need to be removed. But there are other things that He brings into our lives that are beneficial, that do bring pleasure. This is one of those memes that are out there right now. And in these days of uncertainty, where all of our normal routines have been upended, we would do anything. We would love to have a do-over. And if we could, can we uninstall 2020 and install it again? This one has a virus. And again, in our technology and our computer driven society right now, this seems like a very, very reasonable thing for us to want. There's also, we could also have this thought as well. I'm not going to be adding this year, 2020, to my age, because I didn't get to use it. And so it's also natural for us to kind of eschew or shun this discomfort that we're having. So since we didn't get any benefit out of it. But you know, this is the truth though. Sometimes the very best things in our lives come disguised as pain and suffering. Some of those things that happen in our lives, just because something didn't work out according to the way you planned it, doesn't mean it didn't work out for the best. Blessings are often disguised as pain first. And I thought this was a very true statement as I was preparing for this morning. It is often the hardest times of our lives that propel us into the periods of greatest blessings. And I'm certain that if you were to take a few moments and think back to those difficult times that you faced over the course of time, you will realize, I am a very different person because of it. And we become grateful for the tragedy or for the crisis that we came through, because it changed us and made us something better than what we ever had been before. The same is true with these kind of things. And I realize this seems like it's out of nowhere. But there are points in time that there are seeds inside that have to experience trauma to be released. These are what are called serratinous cones. These are just pine cones. But you know, they are coated with a resin that it takes an extreme heat to melt so that the seeds can be released. And there are points in time in our lives that we need to have those difficult times, those periods of extreme heat and discomfort, to release the seeds that will grow. It is true in nature, and this is what happens in the West. Whenever those forest fires go through, and it replenishes the forest. The fires are a necessary piece, and we've talked about that before. During these days, during these weeks that we've been stuck inside, when we've been working from home, and when we've been juggling our work schedules with our kids' school schedules, and trying to get all of that put together, we've been creating a new normal here. And you know, as difficult as it has been, there have been some benefits. And I realize, I can sense that you're rolling your eyes at me saying, seriously? Benefits from this? There really have been. And if you read through the news and you start looking at some of the research, you'll see that there have been some very positive aspects concerning this business of people being inside. And one of the first things that I've seen is that there's a lot less pollution. There are major cities around this globe that since people have been in, the air has been the cleanest it has been in decades. Because there's been a reduced number of cars out, there's fewer people out. Nature itself has appreciated the break. And so the world itself, the globe itself, appears healthier than it has in a very long time. There's also the business of the improved family time and relationships. Yes, I realize that there are some homes that were dysfunctional to begin with, and then being cooped up all of this time together has only exacerbated the problem. However, many families are saying that, they've enjoyed being able to reconnect with them as a family, to have that family time together, to spend time. That's what these kids are going to remember. They're going to remember having more time and better relationships. It's given us time to think, given us time to prioritize, given us time to be creative, given us time to weed the flower beds. And so it's been a gift of time as well. Now, am I saying that it needs to continue so that we can get more benefit out of it? I say absolutely not. I don't think it's not something that I want to have continue over the course of a long time. But this business of reopening presents its own share of challenges. We have become so accustomed, while we didn't like the business of socially isolating, we find ourselves a little leery, a little apprehensive about the possibilities of getting back out there. All of those what ifs. I am not here to tell you what you should or shouldn't do. Father will tell you and will guide you. In all your ways, submit to Him, and He will make your path straight. That's what the Word says. Trust in the Lord. Trust in Him. Now, there's a lot of confusion out there. Will there be missteps and miscues? Of course there are going to be. Are we going to make mistakes? Yes, we're going to make mistakes. It's all part of it. But this is a personal opportunity for us. You see, we have had time now to rethink and to revisit many of the things that, our routines and things that we hold to be important to us. Now we have an opportunity to start again. As we move back into our workplaces, as we move back into our shopping areas and those kind of things, to gain a different sense of appreciation. We become so very accustomed to things just being normal, we don't even pay attention. But to gain those senses of appreciation, of being able to maintain new habits of exercise and, I'd like to say eating better, but I haven't been eating better. But it's one of those things that as we develop new habits, that we maintain them. This new garden that we find ourselves into, because we are on the grow. We've not been on the go, but we have an opportunity now to grow and to grow in our relationships with each other, relationships with God, and we do need to just remember, this is what the Word says. The Word says that we need to grow in grace and knowledge. Growing in grace means that we give those allowances to those people that are doing their best. It's very easy. It's very easy to have a lot to say when you're not the one making the decisions. Oftentimes, we don't want the responsibility. We just want to have a say. And there's a big difference there. But grow in grace and knowledge. It also says to let your roots grow down deep in Him. You see, if those weeds and things, we don't want those roots to grow down deep. But those things that are fruitful, those things that are going to bring forth much fruit in our lives, we want those to grow down deep. And we want our roots to grow down deep in Him so that our lives will be fruitful. And let our lives be built on Him. Then your faith will grow strong in the truth that you were taught and will overflow with thankfulness. As these changes have been taking place, and I'm telling you, Father has had His hand on it this whole time. This is not an accident. It's not a surprise. It is simply part of what Father is doing in our lives. Those things that are fruitful, we need to nurture. Those things that are taking up space and are distracting us, we need to remove. We need to grow strong in our faith. This is a new season. And with new season, there comes new seeds. But with the new season, there comes new weeds. And we need to be able to discern the difference between, and to be able to be responsible, to take the time and to remove those things that are not fruitful. Those things that are creeping into our lives that are going to bring destruction. And the key here and the point here is just simply this. Don't wait. Don't be like me, who simply walk by the flower bed and think, maybe tomorrow I'll deal with that. Don't wait. Start early. While they're still young, while they're still new, you know what they are. You know that they don't belong there. Take a few minutes. I need to simply go out and spend 15 minutes and remove those things. And I'll take 15 minutes another day and another day, because it's not just going to be in this one flower bed. I've got lots and lots of places that I have to tend to. And you do too. You do too. But be diligent. Don't give up. The word says, see to it. This is not a suggestion. Do it. See to it that no one falls short of the grace of God, and that no bitter root grows up to cause trouble or defile many. It's like that tree in my backyard. If you leave it there, it's just going to get bigger and bigger, and it's not going to be able to be removed. As soon as you notice it, pluck it out. Remove it. The word says, don't get tired. Don't get tired of doing a good thing. I'm telling you, weeding my flower bed is annoying. I do not like it. Going through my life and those kind of things going on inside of me, going through and taking inventory about what's going on there, I don't like that either. There are some things that I've become very accustomed to doing. There are things that I like to do. But they really are fruitless. Don't wait. Start early. Be diligent in this. Because as surely as night follows day and spring follows winter, a new growing season begins. Are you ready? Father, thank you. Father, I understand that these gardening messages can be kind of annoying all by themselves, but at the same point in time, Father, this is the language that we speak. And I know, Father, that you are the master gardener, and you watch those things that land in our lives, and you know what the weeds are. But Father, I pray that you'll help us to be mindful, and that we will allow you to be the master gardener and to remove those things. Father, help us to be diligent as we see things creeping in that shouldn't be there. Father, I know that in this time it's become very easy for us to become apathetic and kind of lackadaisical in our relationship with you and in spending time together. And Father, I pray that as we move into these coming days, these coming months, I pray, Father, that as this new normal that emerges out of it, that we will have a sense of comfort where we can come back together, where we can sharpen one another like iron sharpens iron, that we can be together once more. Father, I pray that as we go into our workplaces, I pray, Father, that you'll keep us safe. May we be diligent in our efforts to maintain safe standards. Father, that we will maintain those distances, that we will wear the masks, that we will protect ourselves and protect those around us. Father, I pray that you will cause this virus to die a very quick death. I pray, Father, that it will stop its spread. And Lord Jesus, that you will protect us. Father, for the homes and for those families that call this fellowship their own, I ask, Father, that you will protect them and that you will keep them. Father, for this community, I pray your blessings and your protection upon it. For this state and for this nation, I pray, Father, for the leaders, those people making those decisions, I pray that you give them wisdom. Father, may we submit our way to you. May we not lean upon our own understanding, but Father, to seek your guidance, and that you will show us the way. Make our paths straight now, Lord Jesus. We ask these things in your name. Amen. And amen. Blessings to you all.